You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
All right, here we are with another episode of Hard Foul, brought to you by the what, Mike?
Fan First Sports Network, bitch.
And I hope everyone's having a good day. We made it through another week. It's Friday. It's windy. It's cold, but the Celtics keep rolling, and keep rolling with kind of these makeshift lineups against teams that aren't very good. Although I guess the Trailblazers were playing well when they came into Boston, but wins over the Trailblazers and Sixers. You know, Wednesday night will be forever known as the Pritchard White night, I guess. And I guess we can talk later on if who is the best white Celtics player of all time. Is it JoJo or is it Derrick? But for now, Mike, take it away wherever you wanna go with this.
Oh, the last two games were at least entertaining and fun. These guys are getting out there and playing hard. Obviously, what Pritchard and Derrick White did against Portland was incredible. And honestly, I thought Portland played well too. I mean, they could have missed in the fourth quarter. It was kind of an action-packed game with guys I never heard of in Portland just going off, and then Pritchard and Derrick White doing their thing. And the Celtics really didn't play that great in that game, but they hit a lot of threes, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's entertaining basketball. Pritchard may have put himself back in front for the Sixth Man of the Year award, and
He definitely did. Yeah.
Derrick White obviously was looking great until he got elbowed in the mouth last night and lost another tooth. I don't know if he lost another tooth. I think he did. Other thing I picked up from this, Jim, is that Mike Tirico should be on all the broadcasts going forward, but that can't happen. So,
Oh yeah, we can hit on that. Peyton Pritchard has been the favorite even before that game, and I think his odds just increased. But they were sensational. Like 10 threes, both of them, over 40 points. Peyton Pritchard had 10 rebounds, I believe, too.
yeah.
And they left that, you're right, they didn't play that great. I think at the end of the first quarter, they scored like 30-something points, but they only had like one or two assists, which is really unlike them as a team. A lot of it was, a little bit through isolation. But you just had two guys that were really, really hot, and you tend to, number one, it was a lot of fun and good for them and good for the fans that were there, and to experience that on a night when you look at your ticket and Jason Tatum's not going to play, that had to be really disappointing. And so to get that, it felt like there was a lot of buzz in that gym on Wednesday night, and that must have been really cool. You bring your son or daughter to that, and you get a show. And you get to see Celtics history somehow. Never before two guys scored 40 points in the same game, which really blows my mind. But what it shows for the playoffs is, you can have, and we knew this with Derrick White, where he can take over games. He did that last year in the first couple of rounds where the Celtics were struggling shooting, and he really made the offense work against Miami and Cleveland through the first 5-6 games of the playoffs last year. But now with Peyton Pritchard, you could have quarters and potentially games where he lifts you up offensively when everything is flat. Those are what and we've seen it a lot of this season. But when a guy puts on a show like that, it shows what he's capable of. That's a really hard thing to do in the NBA, to score 40 points, hit 10 threes, and to have that in your arsenal come playoff time. That's just not something a lot of teams have, coming off the bench and scoring like that. And it's not even the really, really good teams. We're going to talk about the Lakers later on becoming a really, really good team. They don't have anything, close to resembling that. So it's such a luxury for the Celtics to have, and we get caught up in a lot of these other teams playing well. And I think we sometimes forget just how deep this team is, and I think that's what last Wednesday night showed us. And Mike, and last night, through three quarters, Jason Tatum has 35 points, and it was the most ho-hum 35-point game I've
Oh man, Philly's
It
so
just, it
bad. I
just,
mean,
it's just
they,
like you expected out of him.
yeah, I mean, Philly runs a starting lineup out there with two centers who can't move vertic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just two out of shape guys. The paint's just wide open. You can get whatever you want against that team. They're just,
They're trying
I
to
can't.
lose.
Yeah, but I mean, even like, it's unbelievable just to think about the team that they built in the offseason to what they are now. Caleb Martin's no longer there. Obviously, Embiid's out. Paul George hardly ever plays. Um, what a disaster that franchise has turned into. I think a positive sign from last night though is
Where
Torrey
was,
Craig.
where's Kyle Lowry last night? Was he even on the bench or was he down at the food court over at Quincy Market?
I mean, why is it? Why are they even wasting a roster spot with him? Him
I
and
know.
Eric Gordon. Like it's just bad roster construction. But yeah, last night I thought a good sign was Craig played really well.
Yeah, it was the other guys. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, he played well on both ends of the floor. Pritchard had another solid game, and then the rookie came in.
Yeah,
Shireman
yeah.
came in and played the best game of his career so far. So good for him.
Yeah, and I thought Jordan Walsh played really well too.
Yeah,
So you had Walsh, Shireman, and Craig chill out, and I think for Bill Shireman especially is you go down the main all. Yeah, I think as of 2 games ago he was like 3 of 18 on the season for the Celtics. So not very good, and you keep hearing about they're having him play point guard down there, they're having him do different things, and he's really showing improvement. Unless you're watching the main Celtics, of course, you're not really seeing it. And then to go up here, it's kind of like a stamp of approval for him personally that your work is paying off. Yeah, I mean, the Sixers are bad, but they're still NBA players. And you come out and you go 3-7 from three, you have some assists, you have some rebounds, you pick up charges, you score, you get to the line, you couple steals, score 15 points. Um, that's a nice confidence boost for him. And I'm sure there'll be a couple more games where we'll have his opportunity at the end of the year when the Celtics rest a bunch of guys going into the playoffs. But it's got to feel good. And it's a good sign. And, it opens up the possibility at least that maybe he competes for rotation minutes next season. So good for him.
yeah, it was good. It was fun to watch. And I'm ready to move on. I mean, they got real games coming up, not these Portland and Sixers games. They got the Lakers and OKC in the next couple of days. So that's something I'm really looking forward to as we try to find meaningful games down the stretch here. We're going to be running out of them, and I think these might be two of the last ones until we see Memphis, and we'll see what the Celtics are doing with guys, the last 15 or so games here. So I'm
Well,
really looking forward to this.
you're not pumped for the Jazz?
No, I'm not pumped for the Jazz. No.
You're not pumped for that ass, the Jazz? Come on.
The
Monday
Jalen
night?
Spring. I'm sure Drew Carter will call it the Jalen Springer revenge game.
Jaden Springer. Yeah, he
Oh,
might as
yeah.
well. Yeah, they're another team that just is benching everybody every game. Like the full tank is on there. Yeah, I look at their injury reports just to laugh. Like every night, it's like at 2 o'clock, it says questionable. Colin Sexton, Laurie Markkinen, um, Collins, and then right before, like an hour before tip off, all those guys are out.
Yeah.
Then the next night, it's the same thing again. So yeah, no, those games going forward. And let's just start right with the Lakers as they pull off a comeback win last night against the Knicks. I think they were down 8 or 10 with about 5-6 minutes to go. And they really, I know this is a team you like, but they outside of LeBron and Luca, this is an extraordinarily flawed roster. For them to be playing at the level they're playing at is pretty impressive.
It is impressive, and it's worked out where, I mean, Austin Reeves is still scoring over
Yeah.
close to 20 points a game.
Well, they don't have a lot of other options outside of
Not
the top
offensively.
two. No.
No, not offensively, but defensively, since this trade, they've been one of the best teams in the NBA. I mean, going into last night in their last 12 games, they had only let a team score more than 102 points once.
Yeah.
And then last night, of course, the Knicks scored more than that, but it went into overtime. And I don't know. I'm not watching them, so I'm guessing that they're hiding Luka. I know they have a lot of length, but they don't have size with Jackson Hayes starting. But of course, they have length with LeBron and Finney Smith in the starting lineup.
Yep.
But I'm assuming they defend the three pretty well, which they have to because they don't shoot the three well. So it should be an interesting matchup to see how they defend against Boston, and also who's playing for the Celtics on Saturday. If Porzingis and Holiday are even going to be out there, but yeah, they've been playing well, and I've been saying all along that I believe in Luka to drag a team to the NBA Finals, and I think he's doing that again this year with more help because he has LeBron James, who's better than Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, but the rest of the supporting cast, it's not close. I don't think. I think the Mavericks had a better supporting cast than this one. Yeah, they are big. They're long and they're big in their starting five with Jackson Hayes and Finney Smith, and then you can. He didn't play last night, but Rui Hachimura can come in. Again, another long guy. But outside of that, off the bench, they're really limited. Vanderbilt gets some minutes, and he's a good defender, but he's not much of an offensive contributor at all. So it's almost like you don't have to guard him when he's in the game. Gabe Vincent isn't a good defender.
Gabe Vincent and Austin Reeves are Celtic killers, though.
Yeah. I've never really thought of Austin Reeves as a Celtics killer, but maybe it's because the Lakers haven't been that good that I haven't cared.
He dropped 40 in Boston last year.
Did he? Yeah,
Yep.
Like I said, they just haven't been that good, so I haven't cared. So you have, I think what they try to do is they try to run you off that line and try not to help too much. And because of their length, they can defend the rim pretty well. I think the Celtics obviously create different type of problems that they haven't seen before. The two wings. You're really going to have to guard your yard, probably much more so than they have against other teams with Brown and Tatum. And then you get into problems, especially if Porzingis plays. What's interesting, though, and you start last year against the Mavericks, is on the flip side, where you typically can't target anyone in the Celtics five, the Lakers are unique in that regard, where Luka goes right after Derrick White, where you don't see that. I can't think of anyone else in the league that does that. Maybe LeBron will too, but Luka in that finals would salivate when he would get a White Holiday matchup.
Yeah, he would salivate when he got a Tatum matchup too.
To an extent.
He attacked that matchup.
But not with as much success as people made it out to be. Tatum did a really good job of not jumping on pump fakes. There were moments where Luka got him that would be pointed out on the internet. But Tatum, especially as that series went on, was very solid against him. And the other thing the Celtics did with a lot of success against him, even, Luka actually struggled at times when Pritchard was on him, which was weird. But they don't go for their ball fake on Luka. At least they were very disciplined in the finals, and it's going to be a key against a team like the Lakers who don't even have I don't believe as much surrounding talent as the Mavericks do. Is you can't jump on it. You got to play him straight up. If he shoots over the top of you, it's fine. But it's when you start reacting to his ball fakes is when he can make magical stuff happen. And the Celtics did a really, really solid job of that last year. And I thought would bait the offense of just going one-on-one with him in the finals. And it worked out with them a ton. Now, I do think this Lakers team is a much better coached team than he ever had in the Mavericks. Where you had the Mavericks team just completely unwilling to shoot the above the break three. This Lakers team will shoot the above the breaks team three, despite not having as much talent as that Mavericks team did. And I think that's a huge advantage for Luka to be able to know he can drive and kick, and those guys will actually fire it up. Just having that threat out there opens up their offense and makes him even more dangerous. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I expect it to be a close game. But I do think if Porzingis plays, and I expect him to, Mike, I didn't know if you noticed, he was on the bench last night. Um,
Yeah, I'm starting to question it. Is he sick or is he hurt?
well, the fact that I hadn't seen him on the bench for the last for this entire homestand until last night, so my guess is he was sick and they didn't want him around the team,
Okay.
or they wanted him to have his rest. You know, if he's just there with an injury, you would see him on the bench, but they were sending him home. So the fact that he was there last night tells me that, maybe he's recovered, but his energy level isn't where it's supposed to be from whatever he had. Maybe it was like a stomach bug or something. I don't know. Um, but the fact that he was there tells me I wouldn't be surprised if he goes Saturday night at all. I expect him to actually. But Holiday, it doesn't sound like he's anywhere close. So I don't think we'll see him.
Yeah, Holiday's injury seems like it could be a while, and obviously you don't want to play him until he's fully healthy because you traded for him for the postseason.
No,
Um,
it's like an injury to him is almost like a benefit, right? He's a guy that's getting older. He can still do cardio and things like that, but he, save the wear and tear of the rest of this regular season on him. Maybe isn't the worst thing.
Although there was a rumor that he might need surgery. I don't know if that's going anywhere, but
No,
uh,
that's been shot down. So it's like it's a break of the mallet finger or whatever that means, but which is the best outcome. So you just put a cast on it and you let it heal.
yeah. So let him rest and let him heal. He'll get himself back into shape. Everybody's talking about Luka, and they should be. He's
Oh yeah, go ahead.
arguably the best player in the NBA. But the guy who's been playing the best on the Lakers is LeBron,
Yeah,
and
he's been awesome.
he's been awesome, right? And so I think something I don't want to say added to his game, but he's been more efficient with this year is hitting threes, and it's making it harder to defend him. I've never really known LeBron as this great 3-point shooter. It's always been, especially later in his career, a part of his game, but he's shooting with more confidence this year. He seems like he's in really great shape. I'm interested to see how the Celtics match up with him because it's a different kind of matchup now with Luka on the floor. It reminds me a bit of Miami, how they play. They really rely on the ISO play of, like LeBron and Wade. Lakers really depend on that ISO play of LeBron and Luka. And to the Celtics' credit, that kind of basketball usually plays into the
Yeah,
Celtics' hands. The Lakers don't really have a quick guard. So for the Lakers, I think it's really important that that third guy who plays that ISO type of ball, Austin Reeves, has to play at a high level. And we'll see if he's able to do that on Saturday. Um, but I think clearly the Celtics are the better team if they're healthy. And you have to beat up on that Jackson Hayes Porzingis matchup. If KP's playing, I think you can certainly go there. And similar to Philadelphia last night, I think there's going to be plays to be made at the hoop. I do think the Lakers are going to take away the 3-point line as best they can, and they're pretty good at it. But, you attack Luka early in possessions. That's how you get him. You hunt the matchup and you don't post them up. You go straight at him, right? And the Celtics exposed that last year. I don't think teams are doing that very much against the Lakers right now. And Jackson Hayes can block shots, but despite their length, they don't have a lot of protection at the rim. So I think where the Celtics can get them, get the ball in the paint, have your 3-point shots come off those drives, which when that's happening, they're excellent. And I think you can score a lot inside against this Laker team. I think that's how you beat them is inside. And the other thing that the Lakers are getting, Jim, that people need to not ignore, they get called for way less fouls than everybody else, and they get to the free
yeah,
throw line way more than everybody else, and that is a factor. That's why they win games. And that'll probably be frustrating on Saturday night.
yeah, and especially with the two isolation players, that's gonna even happen more now with
Mhm.
it's gonna just even increase it. And Austin Reeves is an isolation player too.
And he gets there a
Um,
lot to the free throw
yeah,
line.
so the Celtics, I think they'll do exactly that against Luca. I mean, if Jackson Hayes tries to camp out on in the paint on a Tatum drive, someone's going to be wide open for three. And I don't know how they'll start with their defense. Meaning the Lakers last night they had LeBron and Karl Anthony Towns to start.
Oh wow,
But if you start him on Porzingis,
that could get LeBron in foul trouble. Although, will they call the fouls?
well, you could get LeBron in foul trouble. But you also now, what are you going to do? Especially if Holiday isn't going and it's Hauser out there, say. You're gonna sag off Sam Hauser with Jackson Hayes. That like Tatum will just pick that apart. Yeah, I'd like the Celtics they're able to do that last night. The Lakers, I mean, because you could have Jackson Hayes sag off of Josh Hart quite a bit, right, and have success with that. And maybe you would try that with Drew Holiday on offense, but who the Celtics will replace Holiday with, most likely is going to be a guy that can shoot. But maybe it's Al. Maybe they start Al, and probably would start Al. So they do try this, and they play Hayes off Al a little bit, but that could still be very dangerous for the Lakers. The Celtics just create a lot of problems, as we know, for everybody on offense.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Jim. If Holiday is out, I'm going double big. I'm starting Al and KP because I feel like you can beat this team up inside.
You can, and you have a huge advantage at the center and power forward position. Just a really huge advantage. And I imagine Finney-Smith will probably start out on Tatum. But then what's been just so poor for Luke over his career is he's had to, because of the Tatum element, gone out and played. This is where you just keep seeing all these sorts of problems. If you have LeBron starting out on KP and trying to use his strength and his ability to get out on him as a shooter a little bit, well, that leaves Luka against Jaylen Brown. And Luka he has gotten cooked by Jaylen Brown in his career. Like, that's a matchup that Jaylen Brown knows he can just attack and kill. So
Brown's embarrassed him.
Brown has embarrassed him. And, even I wonder how Luke is going to view this game. He's a little bit pissed off because there's been, there were some reports out there that what Brown did to him in the finals was the reason he got traded, which is, of course, bullshit.
I expect Luka to have one of his better games of the season, don't you? Offensively, I mean, he can't do much defensively, but I suspect he's definitely scoring more than 30 on Saturday.
He's had some great games, offensive games against the Celtics. He's had some real shitty ones too. So, I always expect him to be really good. So yeah, sure.
Yeah, just like I would expect, like when Tatum went back to Golden State for the first time, my thinking going into that game was, oh, he's definitely going off. When superstars get embarrassed like that, they tend to get their revenge. So I don't think the Lakers are going to beat the Celtics in the NBA Finals, and I am picking that to happen. But when the NBA Finals do happen, I don't think Luka's going to embarrass himself this time.
So you keep saying this. Just to be clear, if Tatum and Brown played with Finney-Smith, Jackson Hayes, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Kennett, Rui Hachimura, this is a surrounding cast. It's not good. Vanderbilt and Jamison, would you pick the Celtics to go to the NBA Finals?
Yeah, they'd have Austin Reeves too, and they'd have LeBron James.
No LeBron.
No, you took James out of it. Okay.
Yeah, so
they'd have off. I would. I think absolutely.
You would think that's a good enough surrounded cast to get to the NBA Finals. You get past the Cavs.
Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know. Like I think the Thunder are such a better team.
Once you put on that purple and gold, Jim, you get every call.
The Thunder are such a better team.
They're such a better team, but can they get? I'm not picking the Thunder for anything until they show me they can get over the hump. Similar to how people used to treat the Celtics, is how, as an outside observer to the Thunder, is how I'm treating them.
Yeah,
the lights are going to be on in the playoffs. Let's see if they can do it.
I don't believe. Yeah, sure. I understand why people do that, but I think you've got a huge sample size with the Thunder this year, where they're going to not just be the best team in the league. There's a chance they're going to be historically good in terms of, just looking at ratings and all this other stuff that they throw out there now for different stats. Defensively, they're unbelievable. At the center position, they have two guys that make it a mismatch against the Lakers. Like, I just think it's going to be very difficult for the Lakers to find offense in a 7-game series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it's just, whereas the Thunder, there's going to be a shitload to attack against the Lakers. I I don't. Maybe you're right. I just don't think the supporting cast, and I know they've been very good. It's very small sample size, which are
Who's the
always
fourth seed
wonky.
out west right now? Is it
Who's the
Memphis?
it may be. It's either Denver or Memphis.
Well, Memphis. No, Denver's the 3 seed. So, I mean, the Thunder do have a pretty easy road, in my opinion, to the Western Conference Finals because I don't believe in Memphis either. We'll see. I mean, they do present a lot of size issues. Their defense hasn't been as good since. Oh my God, why can't I say his name? Has come back from injury. It's a really good player.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren, but their offense has been off the hook.
Yeah, their
Since he's
offense has been
but you like they're playing. That's the other thing now. If you watch them, they are playing so fast, like offensively, like which makes it scary against the Celtics because that's how you need to beat the Celtics is to play really fast, which the Lakers do not do. They they look like a different team offensively than they were in November and December this year, and they can still lock you up if they're determined to do so. So they're excellent. They're excellent. It's a defensive offensive rating, net rating is what they're going. They're going for that record there. You can clearly see they're going for the record too, which I happen to like. I think if there's something out in front of you that you can get, you should go get it. So I get what people are saying. I'm more looking forward to that game next week against the Thunder than I am against the Lakers because to me, that's a team that challenges the Celtics more by the way they play and their roster. And it's a good, I think, kind of a better indicator of, what to expect to see later on. But you are right. Oh, they embarrassed the Celtics. Yep.
Celtics scored, what was it, 30 points in the second half
Yep.
of that game? It was because the Celtics in the first half of that game
We're
looked like they were
unstoppable.
giving
Yeah.
a lesson.
Yep.
Here you go, young Bucks. So, well, I don't think the Celtics have beat the Thunder now. They didn't beat them last year, right? So they haven't beat them in a couple seasons either. So they've certainly had the Celtics number. I just think there's something about that jersey, something about that franchise that screams loser. And I'm telling you, I feel like they can break all these records and they're going to fall apart in the series. I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I guess, I feel like you're rooting for the Lakers.
I want the Lakers Celtics NBA Finals bad.
Yeah, I hate the Lakers. I hope they fall in their face.
I'd rather beat them in the NBA Finals.
So
I think the
yeah,
country needs it, honestly.
great week coming up, and I do think that matchup. We spent a lot of time on what the Lakers are going to look like, but I think the more challenging one is the one later in the week against the Jazz. Jaden Springer.
Well, it's the Thunder. I mean, the Thunder are going to present a lot of size issues against the Celtics. They match up well defensively against Boston. You're not going to have
bad defenders. There's no bad you look at the Cavs. There are people they can attack. You don't look at the Thunder and say, "Oh, well, this is the killer whale office." They're clearly going to go. Shea can defend. Shea's a really good fucking defender. That's like the biggest difference between them and everybody else in the league right now. And then there's really no zeros on offense either. There's no guys. I guess you can let you say maybe Lou do it, but he's a 40% 3-point shooter.
Is he still starting?
I don't even know if he's still starting. That's a good question.
I wouldn't think so with all the talent they have now.
Jalen Williams is awesome. Is fucking awesome too.
He's a good player. Celtics have to be strong with the ball. They have to be disciplined. I don't know if you see that in the regular season game against OKC because the way that OKC plays is so fast. But in the 7-game series, I still give the Celtics the edge with preparation and going into it. The way the Celtics play, I think, is more built for the playoffs as far as the game is going to slow down. And they have a guy built for these moments in Jaylen Brown, who's, I think, his best game doesn't show up in the regular season. It shows up in the playoffs when the 3-point shot's taken away. It's not as big as a weapon. And you need a guy to go get you buckets with, jumpers and hitting tough shots in the paint like we saw last year in the playoffs. I think I'm waiting for it. We're going to see the best of Jaylen Brown once again when the playoffs hit. And if we play the 7-game series against OKC, I think Brown would be the difference in that series and the reason why I would pick Boston. But it would be way more competitive than if the Lakers make it. If the Lakers make it, I think the Celtics beat them in like 5. And that's why I want that, because I just want to see LA get crushed by Boston. That's why I'm rooting for it. But an OKC-Boston series, OKC could win the series, but I would pick Boston because of Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, if both of these two teams are healthy and playing well, and that I know that hardly ever lines up, especially once you get through a playoffs. But if it worked out that both of these teams met in the finals and they're healthy and they are playing well, you're looking at a 6-7 game series. It would be an absolute war. It would be some incredibly high level basketball, and you're talking about two teams that just don't have a ton of weaknesses on either side of the ball, especially within the starting 5, and they have bench players that can fill it up.
Yeah,
it would be great basketball. I actually think the guy would make me lean and give the edge. Obviously, Jaylen, you got to give consideration to, but I do think the one guy that gives the Thunder issues is Tatum. He just his size, his strength, his speed, and his ability to read defenses. If he, you will need him to be all NBA Tatum, NBA Finals MVP type Tatum to beat them, and he's certainly capable. That would be a great series. But you're right. Maybe the Lakers are the better option. As I'm starting to say this shit out loud here.
Jimmy, you make a good point about Tatum, and that's like going into every series. You have that advantage with who I think is playing like the best player in the NBA. But I was talking about the X factor, and I thought Jaylen Brown was the X factor last year. Something about his game translates to the playoffs that we don't get to see on a nightly basis in the regular season because of the way the regular season's played. And you see it every year in the playoffs. Offensive efficiency just goes down. It like plummets compared to the regular season, especially 3-point percentage from these teams because everybody's so locked in. And a guy like Jaylen Brown having that second option who can do what he does in the mid-range, that just translates to the playoffs because you need the mid-range game suddenly matters in these moments, like it doesn't matter in the regular season. And I just have a feeling where it's going to be more competitive than it was for Boston last year, that we're going to see him hit a bunch of big shots where he's going to leave this season with like big game Jaylen Brown or big shot Jaylen Brown. He's going to have some sort of aura about him just because Tatum's going to be getting doubled and Brown's going to have these opportunities. And I just think he's the type of guy that thrives in that kind of basketball.
Mike, let's get right into the next. I agree with everything you said about Jaylen Brown, but let's get right into Celtics City.
Oh God!
Episode 1,
awful show.
What did you like? What didn't you like? Give your thoughts on episode 1, which I thought was fantastic. Even if you weren't a Celtics fan, I thought it was good.
There wasn't a thing I didn't like. I just loved.
Oh, there was one thing I didn't like. Can I say
the historical perspective from these guys. And
can I say the one thing I didn't like real quick?
Yeah.
Donnie Wahlberg at the beginning of the show.
I didn't remember.
He was at the very beginning and started talking about being from Boston, and I was just like, why? Why does it always got to be this fucking guy that
He's
represents
everywhere.
us that doesn't believe in vaccines and everything else? Like, get him away. But okay, go ahead.
I didn't know he didn't believe in vaccines. That's not why he
Yeah,
bothered
maybe
me.
that doesn't even have anything to do with it. I just can't stand.
I remember there was a like a Patriots Week 1 Super Bowl celebration that he was the MC for, and it was the most douchiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was glad that KC like kicked their ass that night because I was like, we don't deserve to win after this stupid celebration.
Yeah,
Um, but the show, I love the historical stuff. I really did. There was so much as a Celtics fan I don't know about those early days. I didn't know that they were the first franchise to draft a black player. I didn't know that Bob Cousy spent 6 years in the league without winning. Um, there was just so much I didn't know. And then when they were speaking to Red Auerbach's, I believe it was his daughter, I thought that was so cool. You know, talking to some of these guys' families. I forget the power forward's name for the Celtics, the black player.
Pat
Is it Sanders?
Sanders. Pat
Yeah, man.
Sanders. Yeah,
Like just hearing his interviews were just so interesting, and hearing what happened in Kentucky and that the white guys still played. Um, and hearing Bill Russell's old interview where he just said, you know, as a man, he did what he had to do. I just love their attitudes and how they, and even like the thing that stood out to me the most is the stuff you see on NBA franchises today with two superstars and the jealousy that's all
yeah.
over social media. They just didn't have social media back then.
I know. I know.
It existed.
It's yeah. Well, it's always existed. It existed with Shaq and Kobe. It always existed. But those are all great. Yeah, the first ever NBA player, black player to be drafted was by the Celtics, Chuck Cooper. What I didn't know
Is that they
was,
peed on the restaurant together, him and Bob Cousy? I thought that was
yeah,
great.
I didn't know the two of them were roommates. Cousy came off as just such a sweetheart. Um, just
Yeah.
going back and talking about how he wish he did more, and even at this, he's 90 something years old, striving to be a better person, a better man, just like all American, in that sense. So grateful for his time. I loved what Russell said, where it was, my friend Bob called me and said he wished he did more for me, and I didn't need that. I'm my own man.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really perfect way to encapsulate who Russell was, but also a really nice thing to say to Kuzi in so many ways. Um, it was,
I didn't
that
know
story.
Russell punched somebody in the face in college either.
Yeah, that was a great story. Like the story about Kentucky. So I didn't know the ins and outs of that, where they will go down to Kentucky, to play for, in front of Frank Ramsey's friends and family down there, and the treatment the black players got at the restaurant where they decided to go home and the white players still stuck around and played. You can hear the regret in Tommy Heinsohn's voice. The
Yeah.
first time I ever felt like it was along the lines of not a good teammate to my black teammates. There was issues, and wish you could feel it from Tommy that he wished they hadn't played that game. The other part I absolutely loved, where they talked about the Russell block in the first NBA Finals after he scores the winning hoop, and he comes down and he makes a game winning block, is
What a play. What a
how
play.
Tommy Heinsohn elaborated on the truth of what the
Yeah.
play really looked like over time. Russell ran off the court, and then you clearly see he never went off the court, which was just perfect Tommy. Um,
And my thing I took from it too, Jim, and I was talking to a colleague at work about it, and he agreed with me. You hear a lot of talk like Russell and Will Chamberlain, would they have been able to play? Yes, like just
yeah,
watching that highlight of Russell on that first episode, and then the highlights they were showing of Will Chamberlain and how big he was. Yeah, man, those guys would have been fine. Like Russell
yeah,
reminds me of Kevin Garnett, and Will Chamberlain reminds me of, I don't know, name a dominant big. That's who he
yeah.
reminds me of. Yeah,
No,
they would have
definitely.
been fine.
Definitely, and they would have, in this day and age, they would have figured out how to shoot the three because they were gifted, skilled athletes.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you told them they had to shoot it, they would have shot it. So like
Hmm.
they were athletic and they were great. And Kuzi, maybe he would not have been able to play in the league today, but like he brought that element of flash that the NBA didn't have.
Man, those
So
highlights of him,
yeah,
I could watch those all day.
yeah, the
I don't.
passes,
I'm
yeah.
so disrespectful to that generation because watching that episode for some of it was like I was seeing it for the first time. That so for me it was awesome. It was
So
awesome.
the movie Blue Chips, and I'll get back to. I have a couple other notes that I want to talk about this from this. But Blue Chips, do you remember he was like he played the dean or something at the college? Do you remember the
Yeah,
movie Blue Chips?
I do
And so
remember that movie.
he was shooting free throws and he didn't miss. So he's got to be like 70, 60 something years old at this point. He had hit like 10 in a row. So like we need you to miss. So that at that, if you watch the movie, he's shooting with his left hand from the free throw line, and he's not missing, which is just
That's yeah.
that is.
I mean,
So the other couple things that I loved was there was two lines. One was from Jerry West, which I
oh
just thought was
yeah,
so
man,
badass.
it was.
I don't know where they found this interview because obviously God rest his soul, but he says, "I'm a wolf, and you don't fuck with a wolf."
Yeah,
I
that
was
was
like, "Oh God, that is so that's just an incredible line." And then Red Auerbach, Costas had a show with Wilt and Russell and
oh,
Red,
that
and
was
they had
great. That was great.
and Wilt, I forget exactly what he said, but he said something like Russ said that Auerbach said that I'm a good player and Russell's a champion, and that's always bothered me or something. And they asked Auerbach about it still bothering him, and he goes, "Well, I hope it does." You
Yeah,
know?
it's like those juices never left.
Yeah,
Uh, Another guy, Jim. You just mentioned another one. Just and again, they were quick highlights, but the way Jerry West was built, like his body frame and stuff. When I was watching his highlights, I was thinking that guy would have been fine today.
oh, he
Like,
was incredibly skilled.
yeah, like
Yeah,
he'd be great.
incredibly skilled. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was incredibly skilled. I
And
don't know
Jim,
what you.
sorry, one more thing. Think
Yeah,
about like you think about like Tatum and Brown's story to win an NBA Finals. Think about Russell and Kuzi. Game 7, double overtime. That's how
yeah.
they won their first one.
I know.
Like imagine that today. Imagine that today. A game 7, double overtime.
Well, they're not. They
Like
didn't even get into how Russell is going to win his last one. Which I mean, we're not giving anything away for the show. Everyone knows, but Red had retired. He's the player coach. The Lakers have Wilt and Jerry West. They're heavily favored,
mm,
and it goes down to a game 7 in LA where the balloons are all at the top of the stadium, and Russell points that out to the team, and they win. They win. You know, where Russell is in his last ever game, a game where the Celtics were, you know, if it was nowadays, everyone would be saying it's over for the Celtics, end of the reign.
yeah.
And they go down there and they win. Just incredible, you know, in a game 7. Just incredible. Um,
I think
so
the show on HBO Max, they hinted to that. I remember a lot when they would tell Jerry West's story on Showtime.
yeah.
Like that was a game. So maybe in real life, that's a game that really bothered him for the rest of his life. I think is what they were trying to say in that show.
So what are you looking forward to, not just in the next episode, but in the episodes to come? I have 3 things I have written down.
Man, it's
But
hard to answer that question. I will just say this. I hope they don't hurry through the Russell stuff. I hope I get another whole episode on that generation.
I think you're gonna, yeah.
And I want an episode on the 70s too. I want to learn about Cowens and those guys because these are guys, you know, these are things that aren't discussed in modern day basketball as Celtic fans that I have a lot of perspective on. Um, I'm not as excited about the 80s. I feel like there's been a ton of documentaries and stuff. I really want to I want more of what I got in the first episode. I want more of that generation.
Well, I won't say I'm not as excited about the 80s because I still watch 20 minutes videos of Larry Bird highlights when I'm bored. So I am definitely looking forward to that. But the 3 things in the 70s, that's one. I feel like it's the most undertold story of the Celtics like run. You know, Cowens and Havlicek and Tommy Heinsohn was the head coach.
Yeah.
And you know, it was kind of the bridge team between the '60s and the '80s, and they won. So and Heinz in two NBA Finals, right, as a head coach. Um, and actually, I hope they get into Red firing Heinsohn at the end there, and the bitterness that like arose from that for quite a while before Heinsohn came back as the color guy for the
Mhm.
Celtics. Um, so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in, like you just said, this next episode where I think it's going to get into Russell's relationship with the city and some of the adversity he hit when he was here and the abuse he received
Yeah.
throughout his career, and then also his activism. That was key moment in American history. When schools were reacting to versus Board of Education, the Department of Education was really formed,
Yeah. The
and
busing in Boston. Yeah.
segregation and busing, which was later,
Yeah.
wasn't
That
then,
was
which
after
was
Russell.
later, but you know, you're kind of leading up to that during the Russell years. So I'm real interested in that, in the relationship with the city, and then probably more than anything else, because this is my childhood. They
Yeah.
got
The entire
Patino.
episode on Ricky Davis, right?
Yeah, that they got Patino to sit down.
Oh, God. I have
And
no
so
interest in what that prick has to say.
I have a lot of interest. I want to see what he has to say, and I want to see, because they
He's the
also,
reason Larry Bird doesn't come to Boston anymore.
well, that's where I was going. They also are sitting down with ML Carr. They're sitting down with Larry Bird. ML Carr was the face of the tank and did what he was supposed to do
Yeah.
as coach and general manager. And then they unceremoniously kicked his ass out
It was
and
awful.
treated him, a guy that was a part of those '80 championship teams, was the absolute definition of a good soldier after he retired and went into management, and they treated him like crap. And I want to hear from ML, and then I want to hear from Patino. I hope they get into that, and I also hope they get into, as you said, Larry Bird leaving once they went down the Patino road, and then the comments Patino had about Bird, not just that he's not walking through this door, but he'll never be as good a coach
I
as
coach
me.
circles around him.
Yeah, I want to hear that stuff, and I hope they get into it. I hope it's just not about all the moves he made and things like that, because we know that shit. I want to hear about the way he treated Celtics, including Red. And I want those questions asked to him. I hope they do. I'll be really disappointed in the series if they don't, because that's the one chapter that, like, for me as a fan, as a kid, that I never got closure on. I felt like there was a lot of things that happened that he never answered for. And I hope now, whatever it is, it's what, 30 years later. I hope now he finally answers for some of this bullshit. This used car salesman that he is, just completely dishonest asshole. And, I'm sure he's calling St. John's his last job until someone throws a boatload of money at a, power school at him next season. I hope they hold his feet to the fire, and I want to see how he answers and if he can, just for one time in his life, be honest, which I highly doubt he's capable of.
No, Jim. No. He had his next Botox appointment, so he probably gives you 5 minutes of garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talks about how he drafted Paul Pierce. He probably gives you a 5 minutes on that, how he brought Paul Pierce to Boston.
Who fell into his lap.
Yeah, fell into his lap.
Fell into his lap.
All right. Well, I look forward to the episodes. I really hope they dive deep into those exciting '90s teams in early 2000s.
We
With
can skip
Paul
that.
Walker.
Yeah, we can skip that.
Get me my Ricky Davis and Mark Blunt episode. I'll be really looking forward to that one. Dive into David Wesley and Rick Fox and Tino Raja, and give me what I need, and put some Vin Baker on my plate. You know what I'm saying?
Vinny Toes Baker. Vinny Toes. All right. Looking forward to
Dana
it.
Barros.
Yeah, great TV. It was like, this is great, Mike. We got, these great games this week. You have Celtics City Monday night. If that Utah Jazz game is as bad as we expect it to be, we can just flip over and watch that. And you're going to have Celtics City all the way through at least the beginning of the playoffs. So this is fantastic. Just a lot of fun to be a Celtics fan right now. Anything to close?
Yeah, man. I tried tweeting at Kenny Anderson. None of these athletes want to come on our shows.
Antoine did tweet back at you. He did tweet back at you, so that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did tweet back at me. I'm gonna keep attacking these guys with some tweets. We need to get them on.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Oh, and one more thing. If Senator Michael Quigley's listening to the show, that Jim, you gotta work your connections there to get him on.
He's a hockey guy, and I heard he's not that well. Whatever. He's not a senator. He's a congressman. We'll talk to everyone soon.